I got addicted to the game DC Dark Legion, so I can tell you exactly how the developer uses psychology to get you to spend your time and money to
help the Justice League tax the poor and beat up the members of Slipknot.
I like mobile games. A lot. And I know I'm not the only one. Mobile gaming has never been more popular, with the industry recording higher than ever downloads, playtime, and profits. But most mobile games are free to play. So how is it that these developers are making so much money off a game you play on the toilet? Well, most of these games utilize a library of psychological tricks and tactics to get players to part with their hard-earned cash. I would know, I spent dollars on these games over the years. But as a behavior change researcher, I feel it's important to share just how these games hack your brain. So I'm going to download a mobile game I've never played before and play for at least 2 hours a day for a week. I'll spend up to $50 in the game to try and improve my player experience, but I'll still record how much I would have spent if I had bought everything that was offered to me. I'll be judging games based off their gameplay, visuals and sound, and enjoyment, but most importantly, their sinisterness. Today's game is DC Dark Legion. DC Dark Legion is a game by developer FunPlus that places you, the player, as the new champion of the Monitor, an otherworldly being with the power of both God and anime on his side. The multiverse is being conquered by an extra evil force known as the Batman that laughs, which is what I assume happens if you ask Midjourney, what if Batman and the Joker combined into someone who had poor oral hygiene and was really into bondage? You're recruited as the new champion because the Monitor liked your answers to a couple of his questions, and also your credit card is linked to your Apple ID. Together, with the help of the intellectual property of DC Comics, you must fight back against the Batman who laughs and his Dark Knights to save the universe. I don't get to save the universe a lot in my day job, so this part of the game was really appealing for me. I signed my champion's name in the Book of Destiny and began my adventure. Gameplay-wise, the game is broken up into two main parts, the idle game base section and the battles. The base part of the game is introduced first and involves repairing different parts of Batman's backup Batcave, so that you have a foundation for your fight against the Batman that laughs. If you're familiar with Fallout Shelter, this is basically that game. As the champion of the Monitor, you have the superpower of construction and interior design, restoring rooms like living quarters, a power plant, medical bay, a training nexus, even a lounge. These rooms provide resources to upgrade your heroes and their gear for future battles. The heroes you've recruited also live in the base, and you can appoint them to running one of these rooms in order to improve their efficiency. Some heroes have special skills that make them extra efficient at their job. Poison Ivy and Two-Face both offer a 30% efficiency bonus to the Biolab. Poison Ivy because she's biorestorative, and Two-Face because of the power of restorative justice. Your power to create is limited only by the evil forces of time and money. See, the main way you progress through the base part of the game is by upgrading the War Room. A higher War Room unlocks more rooms in the base and progresses you through the story missions in the battle part of the game. But to do so, you need to upgrade the other rooms, which involves first upgrading the items in that room with cold hard in-game cash, and then upgrading the whole room by spending both cash and time. It starts out pretty cheap and fast. Upgrading the medical bay from level 1 to level 2 involves paying $80 to upgrade the medical bed and vital signs monitor, and then only 2 seconds to upgrade the whole room. I can suspend my disbelief for a dark multiverse, but I draw the line at affordable healthcare in America. Eventually though, upgrading these rooms takes hours. At the end of my 7 days, I had reached War Room level 13, which took 30 hours to upgrade from level 12, and 36 more I would need to go from 12 to 13. And here's where some of the sinisterness of the game starts to peek through. It's like Batman's running a Bed Bath & Beyond type Ponzi scheme. A Bed Batman Beyond. There's even a section above ground where the rescued citizens of the United States of Bat are housed and taxed for their resources, in exchange for protection. Look, I'm not saying this game is some guy's commentary on the inequities created by class differences, but I just think it's kind of weird that the people with powers get to live in a super secure underground bunker with state-of-the-art medical care, a library, private living quarters, and a lounge, while little Timmy gets to work in a trading center next to the Tower of Sauron and has to take self-defense classes in case a gang shows up. Speaking of gangs, basically every other part of the game involves battles pitting your squad of up to 5 heroes against the titular Dark Legion and their lackeys. I put heroes in quotations here because the game also allows you to play as many popular DC villains like Two-Face, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and the OG Joker. But you also get to recruit members of the Jokers, which are some early game henchies whose lives you literally end with the press of a button, and honestly, they're pretty sick. Gatling Gal, Big Boy, Bazooka Bro. One dude's hero name is literally Good Day AK, which is way cooler than his government name of Luis Cannon. Oh my god, I just realized his government name is Loose Cannon. They even end up being the ones running the war room, so I respect the Justice League's principle of rehabilitation. Being an auto battler, the game is dead simple to play. You more or less just pick the heroes you want to fight in a battle, the position they start in, and then watch the bullets and fists fly. There is some purported strategy to these battles that the game loosely tries to teach you. There's healers and brawlers, shooters, tanks, magic users, but to be honest, my experience playing boiled down to just upgrading my favorite heroes and throwing them into every battle. And there are a lot of battles. There are battles that progress the story, battles that help you earn different resources, battles for rankings, battles against other players, and boss type battles. But even though there's a lot of battles, there's not very much that you're going to have to do, since the autoplay function makes even the battles play like an idle game. The only battle you're always up against in this game is time. Even if you have some really strong heroes, the game has a crisis response level that forces you to fight in battles across the US of Bat, or primarily to run patrols over cities. As an aside, I appreciate the inclusion of real-life cities on this continental land bat, like LA and San Francisco, even if they don't look anything like their real-life counterparts. Anyway, the average patrol takes about 3 to 5 minutes. By the end of 7 days, I was trying to level up from level 9 to 10, which meant 80 patrols, or at least 4 hours of running these patrols every 3 minutes. But it's not even like you could do this, since the available patrols are limited and refresh every 8 hours. And that's really the ethos of most mobile games these days. They're not particularly hard or skill-based, but they are very grindy. This means you're coming back to open the game pretty frequently to go on patrols, fight battles, upgrade rooms. Also, you can collect resources, upgrade the power or gear of your heroes, rinse, and repeat. The main goal of the game is foremost to get you to spend time playing it. The more time you spend playing up front, the easier the money comes after. Even the community and competitive elements follow this formula. You're either battling against other players' squads, but only up to 5 times a day, helping your guild by donating funds, but only 20 times a day and then once every 15 minutes, or ascending the leaderboard simply by playing the game. Though I can appreciate that they show you the players that are really at the top of their game. The creme de la creme. Every hero needs a hero, you know? Now, that's not to say the game is necessarily boring. I may be a touch biased as a DC nerd, but the voice acting and visuals are not bad for a mobile game. It's clear a fair amount of effort went into voicing the characters and giving the characters each a unique feel. For example, I unlocked a character I wasn't familiar with before, Arsenal. He's a guy with a bow, a backwards baseball cap, the Oakley sunglasses your high school bully wore, and a tattoo of a snake with a skull on top. Like I said, very unique. Some other things took me out of the immersion in a touch as well, like the fact that guns feel like they shoot marshmallows with how little damage they do, or how upgrading the carpet in the library costs as much as upgrading the electron beam melting furnace in the steel room. I don't know, maybe the carpet's made out of like some extinct animal or something. But I am nitpicking a little. I can't complain too much in a game with Poison Ivy, Wonder Woman, Harley Quinn, and Batman. The loading times weren't too bad either. I'm playing on an iPhone 8 and my load times on booting up the app were always under 10 seconds, usually around 5. The game only crashed once on me in my 7 days of playing, and I very rarely ran into a scenario where I had to restart the app to get things looking right. Though, if you've noticed, there is a lot on the screen to look right. Maybe I'm just used to simpler games, but there are so many things happening on the base screen and every other screen that it can start to get overwhelming. I appreciate that the game takes the time to introduce these features relatively slowly, but the sheer number of things to click on is definitely part of what can make this game sinister. So, without further ado, let's talk about the dark side of Dark Legion. Dark side? Get it? I'm not sure if you caught it or not, but there are a batload of different resources and currencies in this game. Starting with just your basic resources, there's cash for upgrades, EXP for leveling up heroes, alloys for crafting gear, chips for research, and stimulators for increasing level caps. But then there's more specific resources. League contributions help you buy things in the League store. House chips buy you things in the PvP store. Magic Eye buys things in the House of Secrets, and Worldline Particles buy things in the Worldline store, which includes the Magic Eyes used to buy things in the House of Secrets. But wait, there's more. Metabrawl tickets let you play more PvP in a day. Intel points let you raid resources in the Anti-Crime Network, aka the Homeowners Association. Simulation quotas let you challenge the training simulator, which ultimately nets you more EXP chips. Drones let you reduce the wait time on upgrades. Shards let you upgrade the hero star level, and to some extent, all of these resources can be purchased using source energy gems. Oh, and did I mention that the game has not one, but two gacha loot box mechanics? I'll get to that in a minute, but the point I'm trying to illustrate is that unless you have Batman level intelligence, there's no reasonable way to correlate the value of all of these different currencies to your very real dollar, and that's entirely by design. The same premise is used by credit card companies, airlines, and anyone who's ever offered a loyalty program, and the basic premise is always pretty much the same. We're pretty bad at figuring out how much something is worth if we have to do a conversion, let alone more than one. Some conversions are pretty simple. Like here, I can buy 60 gems for 99 cents and get 60 gems for free. Sure, it sounds like I'm getting 2 times the gems, but how much is each gem worth? It's a bit easier when it's a punch card for like a free pizza after 10 pizzas. But when trying to figure out whether I'm getting the best value for my money by buying this in-game bundle for 1200 source energy gems, if 120 gems cost 99 cents, but 1980 gems cost 19.99, do I count the extra gems as part of the dollar value? The game makes this even more confusing by adding these percentages next to each thing you can purchase. Like, take a look at this starter pack. What does 2500% even mean? 2500% compared to if I somehow found a way to buy these items separately? From what I can calculate, the cost of one source gem for the cheapest package ranges from 0.8 cents to 1.6 cents if you don't count the free gems. But if you spent more, you'd get a bigger discount on these gems, right? But if you actually look at the most expensive package for $129.99, the cost of a single gem ranges from 1 cent to 2 cents if you don't count the free gems. In fact, you could buy this first package 131 times, which is how many you could buy with $129.99. You would get 15,756 gems, as compared to 12,960. That's almost 22% more gems. And just like with credit card companies and airlines, the in-game economy is entirely controlled by the developer. In other words, if they want gems to be more valuable, they can just give out fewer gems as in-game rewards, or put crucial in-game resources or items behind gem paywalls. A high-value gem is then made even more appealing to purchase if it's offered at a better deal, which leads us to our next sinister tactic. Let's take a look at the Super Monthly Pass item that I purchased for $12.99 that has an appealing 999% attached to it. There's some extra features in there that definitely help with progression, but I really want to focus on the gems, since those are the only things that you can buy in-game and thus have a direct, relatable value that could inform the 999%. Upon purchase, I get 600 gems up front and then 90 gems a day for 30 days, bringing a total possible gem count to 3,300 gems or 0.3 cents per gem. This is far and away the best deal on gems we've seen so far, but multiplying this number by 9.99 gives us 3 cents per gem, which is 150% of the highest gem valuation thus far. But importantly, this low gem valuation only maths if you log in every single day. Worst case scenario, you don't log in at all after you buy it, and now each gem is now 2.1 cents. You'd be better off just buying only 60 gems for 99 cents. This takes advantage of a phenomenon called loss aversion, which is a tendency for our brains to more strongly feel the psychological impact of losing as compared to winning, and hence avoid situations where we lose. This tactic often presents itself as either a subscription or battle pass, promising rewards through continued gameplay or playtime. But loss aversion can also come from players feeling like they'll fall behind if they don't play the game, even for a day. Here, the prospect of losing is made super clear upfront. Every day you don't log in, you lose out on 90 gems. This is different than saying every day you log in, you'll get 90 gems, because we already know how many gems we can get. In fact, the value of purchasing this item comes from the fact that getting all 3,300 gems is a good deal, and only 600 is not. What's more sinister is that you don't even need to buy anything for the game to make you feel like you might be losing out. Pretty early on, players were introduced to something called the Legacy, which rewards you for completing daily tasks in the game. The more you do, the more legacy experience you get, the higher your legacy level, and the more rewards you get. The thing is, not only does the legacy show the rewards you are earning for playing the game, it also shows you the rewards that you could be getting if you pay for premium. This is particularly sinister, since the game makes it seem as though you've already earned the rewards that come with attaining a particular legacy level, and if you don't pay for premium, you lose out on those rewards. Combined with the ever-present countdown in the corner, and you have a constant reminder that you could be losing out on even more rewards. This is also an excellent illustration of how loss aversion and scarcity work together. When resources or desirables become less available or accessible, they become more scarce. Scarcity of a resource can heavily influence our behavior. The less of something there is, the higher value we may place on it, which can lead to behaviors we wouldn't normally have turned to if it wasn't as scarce. For example, take the current market for Pokemon cards. New sets are being bought up by scalpers before they can even reach the general public. This scarcity is part of the reason why both sealed products and singles from these sets are hyperinflated in value upon release. However, as more people get a hold of these products, scarcity decreases, and purchasing behavior becomes more reasonable. Unfortunately, when you're the player of a mobile game, there's no other way to purchase resources except through the game, meaning the developer can leverage scarcity whenever they want. The epitome of all of this is the limited starter pack item that the game offers you early on. It's only available for 5 days once it's unlocked, contains some pretty egregious percentages of value, and shows you all the paid and free quote-unquote items you could receive through purchasing the tiers of the pack, aka all the things you'll lose out on if you don't. Ultimately, developers use these kinds of tactics to try and encourage the kind of player behavior that they want. And what they want is for players to spend more time playing the game, which leads us to our third sinister tactic. Despite there only being 2 real kinds of gameplay in DC Dark Legion, there's a lot of different ways to do them, and the game rewards you for doing literally anything. Outside of the constant rewards, shiny pop-up notifications, and cool animations used to absorb players' attention while they're in the game, akin to a slot machine at a casino, there is another important underlying way the game hooks players in long term. Specifically, Dark Legion rewards you for completing daily tasks, has a limited number of times you can do certain things in the game within a given time limit, and has a predictable rotating schedule of events and boss battles. As an aside, there's a boss battle that basically just has you punch a giant tank with Batman's face on it. Look, I'm not an engineer, but I really have to wonder how that pitch meeting must have gone, you know? Like, there's some universe where the guy who made the Killdozer is Batman, and this is what he makes. Anyway, the important part about these tasks is that none of them are particularly difficult. They just need to be done consistently. And this is important. Not all habits are built the same. To build a habit requires a desired behavior to be performed in a specific context over and over and over again. But when you consider a habit like putting on your seatbelt compared to a habit of regularly exercising, the former feels much easier to make a habit out of than the other. A big part of why this is because of something called self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the confidence we have in our ability to do a behavior. Simple behaviors like putting on a seatbelt or brushing our teeth are relatively easy to perform, and so we have more confidence in our ability to do them. More confidence means we're more likely to do them over and over and over again, building that habit pathway. What's more, the simpler and quicker the behavior, the easier it is to try and fit it into our existing daily routine. Finding 2 minutes to brush our teeth or 5 minutes to complete our dailies in a mobile game is a lot more manageable for most folks than finding 30 minutes to exercise. In fact, doing dailies in a mobile game is made even more accessible by the fact that it already exists on our phone, a thing that's in front of our eyes more than anything else in a day, second only to our nose. There's a reason why playing games on your phone while you're dropping a big boy is such a shared experience. But the simplicities of these dailies goes both ways. Even after 7 days, these tasks started becoming predictable and monotonous to me. And at certain points, I was questioning why I was playing the game if I wasn't always enjoying it. And for me, this was a familiar feeling. In my history of mobile gaming, with nearly every game I've played, I've come to a point where I sort of just stopped and asked myself why I was giving my time and attention and money to these virtual babes, their games. And this is the other side of habits and why breaking them can be so difficult. It's called the sunk cost fallacy, and basically describes our brain's reluctancy to abandon a particular behavior or a course of action that is clearly detrimental to us, simply because we've already invested so heavily into it. This fallacy manifests in our everyday life in many ways. Eating a meal you don't like because you've already paid for it, continuing a hobby or activity you don't like because you've always done it, or even bigger things like staying in a relationship you don't think is very rewarding anymore just because you've already been together with your partner for a long time. Playing a game you no longer find enjoyment in because you spent hours and hours on it and your IRL money in it is a prime example of sunk cost fallacy. And developers know this. The hardest purchase to get someone to make is that first purchase, to have them sink some cost into your product, so to speak. That's why starter pack offers are always some of the most, if not the most, lucrative products offered in a game. Throughout my time playing DC Dark Legion, no other product came close to the value of the first purchase bonus the game offered at 2,500%. The next highest product was the Construction Queue product at 1,428%, a product which made it even easier to do some of these monotonous tasks in the game. In a way, the sunk cost fallacy involves a level of cognitive gambling on our part. We're betting on the fact that something new or exciting will come from what we're doing that will make it worth continuing down the path we're on when it doesn't really seem like it's worth going down anymore. And speaking of gambling, I don't know about you, but lately I've been getting slammed, Kool-Aid Man style, with sports betting ads and ads for online casinos. It seems like every other week, Big Blackjack's Casino or hole-in-one touchdown goal betting is showing me some ad for how much fun gambling is. Personally, I never really took to any kind of casino games or sports betting, but that doesn't mean it isn't dangerous. A recent study reviewed over 3,500 reports on gambling behavior worldwide and found that rates of problematic gambling behavior that disrupts personal, family, financial, and employment circumstances, is on the rise. In particular, the researchers note that the highest rates of this problematic behavior existed for online gambling and electronic gambling machines like slots, and to me, this really isn't that surprising. See, types of gambling that don't really involve any skill, like slots, prey on a very primitive part of our brain using something called intermittent reinforcement. For most things we do, there's often a clear or predictable line from behavior and the cost of that behavior to an outcome or reward. Craving a pizza? Order a pizza. Pay for a pizza. Receive said pizza. Eat the aforementioned pizza. Resolve pizza craving. Behavior, reward. Pretty straightforward. But intermittent reinforcement takes this predictability and distorts it to hack our brain into continuing to perform a behavior even when the anticipated reward isn't given. Intermittent reinforcement means that instead of receiving a reward after performing a behavior, you might receive the reward after performing a behavior twice, or 3 times, or 69 times, hence intermittently. It's like craving a pizza, ordering a pizza, paying for it, and then getting handed an empty box that just says, LOL psych. JK, the next one you will have pizza for real, no cap. If you want the pizza, you're going to have to go through the whole process again, but at least then you'll get the pizza. Unless, of course, they decide to implement variable reward ratio. See, just because reinforcement is intermittent doesn't mean it needs to be regular. A variable reward ratio means you don't really know when your behavior will lead to the anticipated reward. It could be the next time, it could be in 100 times, it could be at the heat death of the universe. Variable reward ratios encourage people to perform a behavior for however long it takes to receive the reward, without giving any indication for how long that will be. And usually this is taken a step further, with the allure of a really desirable reward or a jackpot. It's like craving a pizza, ordering a pizza, paying for it, and getting an empty box that says, you are one step closer to a 30 pizza jackpot. Keep trying. The moral of the story here is don't order from a place called Joker's Pizza. Intermittent reward with variable reward ratios is how gambling with slot machines works. Any pull of that lever could be the one that wins you that $1 million jackpot. It could be the next one. How silly would you feel if you stopped playing and the next person won your jackpot instead of you? DC Dark Legion uses this tactic not once but twice. In mobile games, they're often called gacha or loot boxes, but you can think of them like slot machines or online gambling, except, without those silly explicit warnings and disclaimers about addiction. Here, you can recruit new heroes through spending World Anvil fragments at something called the Bleed, which feels very appropriate for what this does to your wallet. The World Anvil fragments are very rare in-game, and I found myself needing to purchase them from the store to get most of the ones I spent. The big draw here is that you can recruit the Man of Steel himself. The game does say that a mythic champion or legacy piece is guaranteed within a certain number of draws. Wait, what's a legacy piece? Oh. Anyway, I did end up pulling Superman after about 120 draws, which if you do the conversion of one draw for 60 gems is 7,200 gems, which at our previous calculation of 1 gem per cent is roughly $72. Now, obviously I only gave myself $50 to spend, so some of these gems were earned and bought through playing the game. But again, with variable reward ratios, there's really no telling if I'm luckier than the average player or whether this is pretty typical because these odds are hidden by the developers. but as far as I could tell, this is the only way to unlock Superman in the game thus far. So if you want that big red S, you might need the big green S. The second gacha in the game is played through collecting these items called orrery energy keys, say that 5 times fast, which contain different rarities of heroes or hero shards depending on how rare the energy key is. The interesting thing here is that each key you open fills up the meter in the picture in the corner, which unlocks another key of a color for you to open. It's sort of like how slots don't just give you either nothing or a jackpot, but often something in the middle, just enough to light up the reward part of your brain to keep playing. After all, you won something. It's basically like playing for free. In essence, you don't play these games play you, and their reward is your credit card. By the end of my 7 days playing DC Dark Legion, I had spent $48.91, not including tax. I purchased the Batman starter pack for its crazy value, the first 3 limited time starter packs, the Super Monthly Pass, a limited time resource pack, a Batman upgrade pack, and my favorite DC character, Damian Wayne, aka Robin. I just love Robin. I can't explain it. He just looks like such a cool character. Anyway, in the time I played, I had a limited time offer come up nearly every time I opened the app, recruited a new hero, or upgraded the war room to another level. While some items were truly limited time offers that I didn't see return after they expired, there's still a lot to buy in this game. In fact, I calculated if I were to buy everything that the game offered me, I would have spent $1,243, which is crazy because a Nintendo Switch 2 console is $630 where I live. But to be fair, I don't think a Nintendo Switch 2 would let you buy a bat train. The final tactic I want to highlight here is the infinite spend. And what I mean by that is there's no limit to how much you can spend on the game. You can always buy more in-game currency, which can help you open gacha, which can help you upgrade heroes, which can help you win more battles, which can help you get more resources. You get the picture. With every other tactic I discussed being employed by the developers, it would seem clownish of them to limit their effectiveness by only offering a finite amount of items to buy. And when you consider that this game is in part meant to appeal to a younger audience who may not have the knowledge or awareness of these tactics, but has access to a credit card, seems like a Sinestro move, if you ask me. Overall, my gameplay experience playing DC Dark Legion for a week was enjoyable. While auto battle strategy and idle games aren't necessarily very entertaining to me in their own right, I thought the visuals and sound were appealing, the story to be interesting, and the initial rewards to be pretty generous for progression, even for free-to-play players. There was enough to do that I didn't get bored of playing too soon, and at the end of the 7 days, I found myself wanting to continue playing, but that's no doubt biased a little by my love for DC Comics IP. For the game itself, I'd give it an 8 out of 10 for a 7-day play experience, but your play experience and luck may vary. However, the game was very clearly made by a very experienced mobile game developer. The batload of in-game currencies and resources, artificial scarcity, habit building tactics, infinite spend, and not 1 but 2 gacha mechanics make this game trigger a lot of red flags for me as a behavior change scientist. So for sinisterness, I'd also give it an 8 out of 10. And Sinestro's yellow lantern ring. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or you learned something new, I would love it if you'd subscribe to the channel and like the video. And also, please comment down below on what game you think should take advantage of me next. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you next time.
Nightwing, what are you doing here?
Oh, just following a pattern of obsessive behavior instilled in me at an early age.